on to the third session for today, which I am personally quite excited about. So, our next session addresses the importance of mental well being and the mind body connection and its importance on young people today. As I'm sure all of us here know, our health is like an investment. The earlier we make investments into our health, the larger the returns we receive when we are older. With COVID-19 causing daily stresses in our lives and all the turbulence it also causes, it is important to maintain and renew ourselves mentally in order to remain resilient to maximize our potential. So, without further ado, let me get into a quick description of what our next session is going to be like. So, we would like to heartily welcome one of our Youth 2.0 global coordinators, Miss Iccha Bhan. She is the counselor and remedial educator for Glendale EduFund and Glendale International School, Cambridge. She is also the cognitive hypnotic life coach, NLP practitioner, and former Brighter Minds facilitator. Well, here's a bit more about her on a personal note. Her hobbies include playing the ukulele and singing, because music is her way of connecting herself with others. Her innate sense of both synergy and unity will enable us to dive deeper into mental wellness. So, without further ado, over to you, Ichha.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. It's seriously such an honor, um, and I never imagined I would get a chance to do this. Um, so, without further ado, I would like to just start off. Um, so, I'm just gonna present my screen. Yes, second. Yeah. Is it just is it all good?
Yep, it's clear. We can see it.
Um. So, hi, everybody. Oh God. Um. So today I just want to take some time to talk about how the arts and different aspects of the arts can help in managing stressors. So if you notice, I haven't said stress or anxiety. I've used the word stressors because there's a slight difference between them, and I'm going to clarify what they are, and then we can move ahead with that. Um, so a stressor is, as it says on the slide, right? Anything that causes a release of the stress hormone, right? Which then elicits any kind of response, whether it be the fight response or the flight response of our body. Um, there are two main types of stressors, right? These are like two very broad categories. One is the absolute stressor, which is an event that happens and everybody experiences stress with it. So everybody interprets that situation as a stress, as an object of stress. So these are objective and universal events, which would be the pandemic in this case. So the pandemic hit, everybody didn't really understand what was happening, and because of that sense of unpredictability and the sense of I don't know what's going to happen next, it everyone was stressed out, upset in their own ways. Whereas the other one is the relative stressor. So this is when a situation or an event happens where some people experience stress with it, whereas some may not interpret it as it being stressful. So these are more subjective in nature, and you kind of uh, respond to it based on your ideas, your beliefs, and the way you experience certain things. So in this case, a relative stressor would be social distancing, right? So some people enjoyed the process of being at home and being on their own and not being able to sort of do the things that we usually do. Whereas some people didn't enjoy it at all. They were, left in the dark and they didn't understand what was going on. So these are the two basic differences in stressors. Now, obviously, it has its own impact on us. And the reason why arts are so effective in dealing and managing these stressors within us are these reasons. So, the way our mind, our unconscious mind, actually, our conscious and unconscious mind, it interprets information through the environment in terms of images. So if I say something, if I'm talking about something important and I say, you know what, I'm gonna tell you something, just don't think about pink monkeys in the middle of that. The only thing that you're gonna think about is pink monkeys. So things that really stick out to you are the ones that we can create images to, and they could be absurd, they could be super vibrant, they could be extremely creative, and that's the thing that's going to stick out in your mind, right? So in a sense, because the arts can create these kind of images for you and create these experiences for you, it's like talking to your mind in a language that goes beyond just words, or um, beyond what you can see. um, it helps you sort of understand the world in a completely different perspective. So in fact, this is what the image is showing, that someone, actually, I don't know who this is, but someone has created an emotion wheel, and they've kind of, just taken a moment to understand what colors are associated with these feelings and what images are coming to their mind, and they've put it across in this way. So if you look at something like confused, if you don't have that image to it, it could be a little daunting. So even the concept of being worried, right? Like it's a little scary when you have to kind of face all of that. But if you put an image to it and a color to it, it suddenly becomes a lot easier to look at it and a lot easier to face it. So it really has the power to help you tap into aspects of yourself that may scare you, and it makes it a lot easier to deal with. um yeah, and it creates new connections in your mind as well. So if you think about it, and if you kind of put, so I'm talking mainly in terms of visual arts right now because I've had the most experience with it. um but if I've seen this in my own experience, right? If whenever I've kind of put in colors to a certain thing, or every time I've colored something, or every time I've painted, it gave me the confidence not only to manage my difficulties, but also it gave me more confidence in myself, because it created new connections in my mind, and it gave me a completely new perspective to deal with these things. So there are different types of arts that you can use to give meaning to a few things, or a few difficulties, or to manage these stressors. You can use dance and movement, and the reason why dance and movement is so effective, it's a very, very powerful technique, is because whenever you experience any sort of stressor, or any event that's left an impact on you, or any emotion as such that's done that, there's energy, right? So emotions have energy, and they stay in your body, they stay in parts of your body. And the minute you take a minute to center yourself and notice where those sensations are happening, and wherever you feel, sort of wherever you feel your body take you, wherever you feel like you want to move, and whichever part of that body you want to move, it starts releasing that tension. So dance and movement is a beautiful way to release that stuck energy of those emotions as well. Words, we know that words are really powerful, and you can kind of create a story around certain things. You can create a new narrative. In fact, very recently, we just released our 10th edition of our lighthouse, which is the newsletter that we are doing. And within that, there was there's an activity in our newsletter that we've said, think of a situation that um, think of a situation that didn't go in your favor. Right? Think of something that didn't go the way you planned, and write a completely new narrative for it, one with a more positive outcome. And they say that is supposed to really change your perspective on it, because it releases the burden of what had happened, and it opens your mind up to dealing with it later in the future if it were to happen again. The visual arts is really, really effective, as I have been saying so far in my presentation. And music is something that personally really speaks to me. Um, and that was said in the lovely introduction. Thank you so much for that. Um, Music is very, very powerful. It's a different. It's almost like a universal language, and it could be from. I mean, this could work from you listening to a piece of music that you feel matches your mood in that moment. If you're upset and you feel like listening to a sad song, you do that, and it's a form of catharsis. So you let go, you release it through just listening to a piece of music. um, you could play an instrument, and again, that helps in creating new connections. It's a lovely way to get your hands moving, as well as get your mind sort of focusing on that one thing. And all of these types of art can really push you into a state of flow, which then allows you and gives you that safe space to explore and to understand a lot more about where you are, what is it that's upsetting you, and it gives it a new way to kind of deal with all of that. Um, and now that this is done, this is actually the perfect way for me to introduce the activity that I want to do with everybody. Um, I want to actually give you a hands-on experience of what it's like to use the visual arts in a slightly unconventional way, but a way in which that really helps you understand a little bit more about your ideas and your beliefs. Um, I'll take you through that. So this is a completely abstract painting that has no meaning as such. And this is actually it's a technique called intuitive painting. So you just take a look at the painting. There's a lot of different aspects that are coming out. There are a lot of different elements that are a part of this. Um, See what sticks out to you the most, and try and explore what the different elements represent to you. So, what is your idea when you look at this? How does it represent your life today? Um, we actually have a Menti where you can share your responses. So I think I'll give you a minute just to look at the artwork, and then we can get the Menti up. So this is actually a lovely technique, because you're not putting any thought into it. This is actually something I created in the middle of when the quarantine just hit. I did a course called Healing with the Arts, and this was one of the activities I had to do. This was one of my assignments. And the idea is just to kind of look at the paper, pick up the paintbrush, and go on to any color that your body is moving towards. It's not your mind, it's your body. It's your intuition that's taking you there. So, take the color, fill the color on your paintbrush, and just paint wherever your hand takes you. There's absolutely no preconceived notion to it. It's just wherever it goes. And the idea is that it shouldn't, it doesn't have to look pretty. That's the best part about it, I feel. It's just whatever you feel in that moment. So I think we can get the Menti up now. So once that's up, oh great. So you can just go on to www.menti.com and type in this code 67125550. and there'll be a question there, and you can respond to that question. Um, so I'll just repeat the code once more. It's 6712550. So while you are responding, I can. In fact, I'd love to tell you my experience with the course with healing, the course of healing with the arts. It was a mind blowing course. I think as a kid, actually, I've always wanted to kind of try my hand at art and try my hand at painting and sketching, and I genuinely never had the confidence to do it. And since the quarantine had hit, I mean, we were at home, we didn't have a way out to go, and it was just kind of like, figure out what to do. So then I thought about it. I was like, well, okay, oh great, it's come. Um, Randomness, that's cool. Warm chaos. I'm just gonna. Uh, it displays ongoing chaos and confusion in my life. I think I see a volcano that represents stress. All right. Color, fun, going with the flow. Life has its own way. I love how different all these responses are. Um, so this is interesting. Feelings, emotions, failures. So whoever has written that, I would say failures, is there really something known as failures? I mean, does failure actually exist? Or do you learn something out of something that didn't sort of go your way? I like to look at failures not as failures but as a major learning experience. um, Life has a torturous path. Interesting. It represents the reality around me. All right. The meandering lines represent a state of perennial confusion. These are interesting. So when I finally did this, when I looked at it, I couldn't put a meaning towards it. I don't know why. Um, and it's really lovely to kind of see the different responses, because I had done this a similar activity for a holistic wellness event that we had as part of Youth 2.0, and their responses were different, a little more detailed, but they were, they had, I think, a little more time to kind of put it across. This is The painting made me feel destruction. All the work painting. All right. Interesting. So there's a lot of I see common themes there. So confusion, um, almost like restlessness, madness. All right. Love and joy. Oh wow, that's nice. Love, peace, and happiness. Diversity. That's beautiful. Thank you. Um, the painting shows me how crucial our lives are. Through the painting shows different meaning for me, but it looks like it's unorganized well. Interesting. But the volcano in the painting catches my attention. It is a thread, which is part of our lives also. Absolutely. The pink and yellow are these are lovely. I've seriously, like, I think I've sort of understood a lot more through your responses, looking at what I had done. The prism in the painting represents various aspects of my life. Mhm. You as a prism is a triangular shape and used to disperse spectrum of light nearly our lives. That's beautiful. Our lives have different phases that contribute into making us as a whole. I think that's such a wholesome view of it. Thank you. Um, Definitely it expresses emotions. Absolutely. When I finally looked at the painting, I was a little confused. I was like, oh, I don't know what I've done, but okay. But by the end of it, I felt in some way relieved. So that was an interesting observation. Um, Life is full of surprises, and all you have to do is just be happy. Like the painting. That's so sweet. It's full of colors. No matter what life brings to you, it's still colorful. We must remain grateful and look for the beauty in life. That's lovely. It's been such a pleasure to read all your responses. I've enjoyed doing this. Um, I will say this though, the whole aspect of using art, sometimes it's a little uncomfortable because you, again, right, you're facing things that you sometimes tend to avoid. So it it kind of there are times where you feel a little like uncomfortable with the product of it, but if you keep working at it, it reduces it, and you start looking at it, and it's a fun process to do. um, so thank you so much for spending this time with me and going through it, um, and doing the activity so lovingly. I really appreciated looking at all the diverse responses, so thank you for that. I'm not sure if we have some time. I'm good to take some questions.
Yes, thank you, Miss Ichha, for that wonderful sharing. We do actually have a couple of questions, and I was also really intrigued about like a few things which I think we can mention after the questions also, because our audience is
Absolutely.
really eager to have their questions answered.
Absolutely, absolutely. More than happy.
Okay, so starting it off with a bang. So we have an audience question that is in fact more worded as a statement,
Right.
interestingly enough. So the audience asks, what is one tip besides arts that you would like to give young members of the audience about dealing with stressors or triggers?
All right. So this is interesting because you're absolutely right. It goes beyond this, right? So thank you for that question. I think it's important to highlight that. I would say my one tip is when there is something that's bothering you, right? If there's a stressor that's really impacted you and you feel like, it's not a pleasant feeling, whatever emotion you're feeling is trying to tell you something. There's a response in your body, right? There's a thought that comes in, then we respond to it, and usually we tend to shun it away because it's not pleasant, or we don't want to kind of look at it. But if we take a moment just to pay attention to what that emotion is telling us, there's a purpose behind it. So if you're feeling guilty, that's one of the most unpleasant feelings you can feel, right? It's usually telling you that there's something that you're doing that's not working for you. So if you pay attention to that, you can say, okay, this is not working, and my body is telling me so. So what else can I do? If it's anger, then it's usually to do with unfulfilled expectations. So if you look at the situation for what is, you can kind of work beyond it and say, okay, well, let me change my way of looking at it, and let me see what I can do to make myself a little more comfortable in the situation. So listen to your body, listen to yourself, and listen to your heart.
Yes, thank you for that insight. Like as you're mentioning, like the very concisely the last phrase, right? Listen to your heart. I was
Yeah,
just thinking about how in today's world there's a significant emphasis on being logical and rational and always having a clear idea of your end goal.
yeah,
But at the same time, this sort of kills serendipity and like the joy of just finding things by chance, which I think is also what you mentioned about doing modern art, then interpreting it in the way that we feel is right for ourselves. So that,
absolutely.
yeah, so that particularly resonated with me. And okay, so because of a time constraint, we can only entertain one last question. So yes, let's end it off with a bang.
Yeah.
So the next and the closing question is, asked from our YouTube live also, which is what is something that we can do to prevent a negative interpretation of life or just art in general?
Interesting. Um, okay. So negative interpretation in what sense? Because it can be usually when something happens, right? So there is a situation and you in I mean the negative interpretation is when you associate it with something you don't particularly like, right? So one person would view it as it being beautiful, whereas the other would interpret it as being like, I don't really understand what's going on, or this is not, it doesn't get very nice feelings in me. Um, I mean, honestly speaking, you can't run away from the negative aspects of life, right? It's gonna keep finding its way towards you. And the beauty of it is, I think once you have um, probably the confidence in yourself to deal with whatever comes your way, the impact of that negativity will reduce. Because you know that no matter what happens, you're gonna make your way through. So to do that, I would say explore, understand what your strengths are, understand the areas that you need to improve in, and how you can turn those into strengths. Because at the end of the day, the difference between a person who is not able to handle what's coming their way and is able to is the trust in themselves to know that okay, I'm gonna be able to move past this. And the heartfulness practice does that beautifully. I mean, you have like a toolkit ready with you to use whenever and for whichever problem you face. So understand yourself, build yourself up, and enhance your confidence in yourself. Trust yourself.
Yes, I definitely do agree. The concept of trust is, I would think, instrumental in building oneself up and viewing the world in a positive way.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I'm afraid that all good things must come to an end, and thus this session also has come to an end because of our time constraints. So, once again, thank you, Miss Ichha, for your insightful responses. But because of this time constraint, we are unable to take any more questions for today. And personally, I really enjoyed myself this session, and I hope our audience also took some pearls of wisdom away from it. I found it quite relatable on how you linked coping with stress and stressors by listening to music and engaging in different art forms. Because from personal experience, my favorite way to relieve stress is also just to headbang vigorously to my favorite band's music. So I really appreciated the sharing and how you try to portray it in such a way that it appeals to the youth of today.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you. It's been a lovely experience.
Yes, thank you too for your valuable time and experience.